This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to convene the North Haven Fire Commission meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you for being here this evening. I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes from the Board of Fire Commission meeting for February 22nd. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor? So moved. The Chief's report.
Good evening. I'll cover the Chief's report. We'll start with alarms. So alarms for 2021 at this time, we were at 933 alarms. Presently, we're at 1,148 alarms, a difference of 215. During our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, which occurred on February 22nd, we reported similar stats, and so these stats I'm going to give you below are going to cover from our last meeting until present, essentially yesterday. So there were 23 incident responses to the highway, 15 different ALS intercepts were provided, 75 incidents in which just the ambulance responded with no fire department apparatus. 54% of our calls were EMS related. There were 362 incidents since our last meeting, 80 of which were overlapping, which accounts for 22%. That covers the alarms. Regarding the budget, year to date, at this time last year, we were at 71.3. Year to date, present day, through period A, I should say, is at 68%. Regarding the permit fees, since our last meeting, we've collected $30,472, which brings our total this fiscal year to just over $180,000. For EMS billing, it looks like through period 8, we are at just over $50,000, and that covers the budget. Regarding the Fire Marshal's office, you were all provided with individual reports from the Fire Marshal's office, so 52 inspections since our last meeting. We did pursue one arrest on an individual related to a fire scene, 37 plan reviews or permits, and 15 public records requests, 32 different inquiries. We continue to stay busy with every lockdown drill and fire drill at all public and private schools in town. Some of the more time-consuming items that occurred since our last meeting was we identified a local strip mall in town that was not calling out the fire alarm correctly or not working at all. We had to address that. One particular business in town that we're involved with the police now, and a couple different investigations going on there. Looks like 2 different hoarding investigations. Those can be very time-consuming, working with various departments and setting up various meetings and having to go out there with a number of different officials from town and the health department. And there was also a large warehouse which was reported to us to have egress issues, and we were tied up with that on several different occasions since our last meeting. Other than that, we continue to move forward with the meetings for 2022, which involve all town departments and contractors. We invite them to the fire department once a month. Anybody who's looking to develop something in town and would like to have all town officials, town departments in a room at one time to address any questions or concerns they have regarding zoning, building, construction, whatever it might be, that's an opportune time to get us all in the same room together and ask those questions. And so we continue to plan for those. And other than that, with construction picking up in a few different locations in town, you'll see us, as I've talked about in the past, working hard to make sure that the construction fire safety plan is enforced throughout the construction project. And that's what I have for the Fire Marshal's office, and that concludes the Chief's report.
Any question of the Chief on his report?
I have just a few. So the call volume, someone had asked me this question about the calls. So can you clarify what constitutes a call. Does it relate, this person thought that it related to the number of apparatus that went to the scene, but I just want to get that clarified.
Sure. So that's been questioned in the past as well, and that's never been the case. We've never reported that stat. So the stat that's reported on a monthly and on a yearly basis is the calls for service, which is could vary from one apparatus being sent to 10 being sent. It doesn't matter. And I don't know that report has ever been worded otherwise, even by my predecessors. It's always been a call for service report that's been worded. So with that said, there were just under 5,000 different incidents last year. And having been asked this in the past as well, even the town calendar in which I provide the annual report to goes into detail that each one of these incidents are a separate incidents.
Okay.
If we were to include, let's say, what you're kind of referring to in the industry there is called like a run report. So how many runs did a department go on? If we were to run that report, it would probably number somewhere close to 7,000.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure that that's correct.
Sure.
In terms of the budget, I know a while ago we had talked about, and this was previous to Ed passing away, about getting a copy of the budget numbers from the finance office when they're going out to the Board of Finance. Do you have an updated status on that?
I do not. I put a request into Rich Monaco.
Okay.
I have not gotten a response back, but I will follow up on that.
That's great. And then the other thing that maybe we can add into this is, I know you've talked at times about the encumbrance, the issue with encumbrance having changed, and so that the amount that's showing as encumbered doesn't actually mean that it's been spent or that it will be spent, but there was a change in process. Can we get clarification also from Rich or from the finance department on what that policy changes, and to make sure that the Board of Finance understands that process? Because when I go to the meetings, they're looking at encumbrances as being the money's already been spent, or it's been committed and will be spent. And so I think with the change in the PO process, that's not necessarily the case, but that's really important for them to know, because when they see a very high percentage already being spent, they're assuming that the encumbrances are money that's gone.
Yeah, we could certainly speak to them about that. I know that they've hired a couple of new folks in finance, have they not, Chief, or one new person?
Not for this position, though. That was
Not to replace Ed,
That was
no.
for personnel.
Yeah, okay.
I don't believe anybody's been hired
Well.
to take care of finances as of yet.
Okay. But yeah, we could certainly ask that question.
Yeah, and to find out what that is. And then the last piece is, there was conversation around the paramedic billing, and shortly, a while ago, I had asked Ed that there is a report that the Board of Finance gets that talks about, I can't remember what it's called, but the paramedic billing was on there, and there was a number that was in there as the cost of running the paramedic billing, the paramedic program. When I asked Ed what those numbers were from, what that amount, the cost was, the expense, he said that he wasn't sure what those numbers were and they weren't accurate. So so he took them out because he realized that wherever those numbers came from, they weren't correct or accurate.
Mhm.
So I think that's another thing we might want to just ask Rich Monaco to pass on. That's the reason that Ed took it off of that sheet that they get. I think it's called special revenue or something like that. So that people are clear that that amount that was on those reports for years about what it cost to run paramedic billing was not a number that was based on actual expenses. So, and I think that's it. Those were the two things.
Okay. I'll certainly touch base with Rich on these three items.
Okay.
Any other questions of the chief regarding his report? Here none, we'll move into correspondence. Chief?
A few correspondence came in for the commission that I can pass around. One is for an individual on Divine Street, which was thanking us for responding to Divine Street so quickly. and assisting her during him or her during their time of need. I believe it was a her. Secondly is a letter of thanks from an individual who received masks. So what the public and the commission, I believe the commission is aware of this, is that during the month of February, when there were masks and test kits being provided to the community at those 4 different town locations, one of the things that the town did was make an ADA accommodation for anybody who did not have the ability to travel to one of the distribution points. And so we, through IT, was able to populate a phone number that went to a message, and both Yvonne and Nancy were able to keep up with that workload and basically stuff envelopes with masks, and then some of our firefighters at different times would actually provide them as well. So the masks being mailed were done by our staff, and then the drop off to people who couldn't get to a site were being done by our staff. Now, unfortunately, you can't necessarily mail test kits. At that time, don't forget, we were in February, it was still pretty cold, so they can't stay out in the cold very much. So that's a thank you letter for that, and then I have another thank you letter. This one's also regarding a medical for an individual who was at Big Y. So I can pass these around. And the only thing under correspondence I wanted to make sure you were aware of was for several years, the West Ridge Volunteer Association has been kind enough to purchase an ad in the playbook for the different high school plays that have taken place. This year we were actually on the back cover. So we've done that for a number of years. So that means every person who's gone to a play at the high school, and they are incredible performances, both in the spring and the fall, has seen the fact that we are actively recruiting for volunteers. And that's what I have for correspondence.
Any commissioners receive any correspondence?
I do not, but can I go back? I have one other question.
Surely, go
Can
ahead.
you just explain, sorry, can you just explain what a hoarding, you were talking about hoarding, so what is that?
So hoarding conditions are essentially people who have, there's TV shows even after it, too much stuff in them.
Yeah, I know what hoarding is, but how do you guys get called to an incident like that?
Sure. So there are a few, even though they typically occur in single-family homes. The fire marshal's office does have authority in single-family homes when it impacts egress or when it involves tenants, and so it's kind of a collaborative approach when we get a complaint, and it can come in through a number of different ways, where we will go out there with a number of different town agencies and assess for, particularly in the fire department's case, it's egress, it's hazardous chemicals, it's fire load, it's things like that. And we help to bring the issue to light of determining what the next steps are. If there's a fire safety issue, we can move things along pretty fast. If there's not a fire safety issue, then it goes back in many regards to the building department, the health department, and social services.
Social services.
But
okay.
essentially what we do is we go there to make sure that there's nothing that's going to impact life or safety.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
Anything else on the correspondence? Old business for the fire department.
I'm not aware of any.
Nope.
Nope.
New business.
This is new business for the commission, so no, I don't have anything. No.
Okay.
No.
Chief, where are we with the training tower?
Training tower is complete. The CO is been issued, a temp CO. There's a couple of small things we're waiting on. It's really because of parts right now. The staff is using the training tower, and Public Works this week is starting to put lay the foundation in for some paving and so forth to take place back there, because right now it's quite muddy.
And as far as the apparatus that was struck on the highway, where are we with the repairs or proposed repairs?
So the good news with that is it's going to be repaired.
Oh,
So that's very good news. It's currently at a body shop, a local body shop, and the opposing insurance company is sending an appraiser out to take one last look at it, come to an agreement on a couple of last things, and that should be coming back to us to go back in service for a period of time. While parts are ordered, it can still be used, and then when the parts all arrive, we're trying to minimize the downtime because we can't afford to have this down for very long. And we'll minimize the downtime, we'll order the parts, we'll go back out for the body work that it needs, let's say, in, I'm hoping 4 to 6 weeks.
And while it's out of service, we have something that it can.
While it's out of service, we'll be using engine 3, which is, I believe, 34 years old.
And what about the rescue? That was another one that was.
So the rescue is still out of service. It has been for some period of time. Had to get the town attorney involved as of March 1st because the warranty was due to expire today, March 22nd. Without reaching a resolution, we were able to consult with Attorney D'Onofrio, and we sent correspondence to Allegiance Trucking and to Navistar. It does appear that there's going to be a remedy for repair. The issue being is that we've just lost all faith in this thing entirely in being a dependable ambulance rescue as what it's intended to be used for. It's been out of service for 6 months in the last 12 months. So even with a resolution on the table here, it does not look like we're going to be able to put it back in service as a rescue. We just can't trust it. Numerous times it was failing going to either fires or going to medical calls. So what I'm doing is I'm pursuing, we had built in the capital next year. We had the purchase of another rescue, which we were due anyways for another rescue, although ideally it should have been replacing the older one. The one that we're having trouble with is the newer of the two. The older one really isn't giving us any problems, but we still need to have at least two. So we were pursuing the second rescue through capital next year. It looks like we might be able to secure that through ARPA funding.
Any other questions as far as?
This is not new business, probably should have gone on old business, but last month you gave us a report on the responses for the volunteer calls. Do you have that today?
No, so one of the things I think we talked about last month is I really don't want to cover that from a month-to-month basis. If we want to cover that quarterly, every 6 months, more than willing to do so. I think that it's going to become demoralizing. We talk about it every month to the volunteers that are giving it their all and are trying their best for us to talk about it every single month. What I can tell you is there's not going to be a big change from month to month. There's just not. The stats I gave you last month are going to repeat themselves month to month to month. There's not going to be a big change.
Okay.
Can you repeat that, Chief? I didn't hear you. What was it you said? We're not gonna what?
We're not going to discuss last month we talked about how few times the volunteers responded and how many times they got out and how long it took for them to arrive on scene. That doesn't change, as you know, from month to month. That doesn't change very much. It's pretty much constant numbers, if you will.
What are our numbers right now for volunteers?
As of last month when I reported it, we had 28 volunteers with 3 probationary.
I guess it's the same all over the country.
It's the same everywhere. Yep.
There's no question that the lack of volunteers isn't because of their lack of dedication. Certainly the persons who are on board now are giving it their all.
I understand.
Based on their family
When my
situation.
kid and I were on, they used to fight to get on Engine 5.
I know,
Now you can't find anybody on the streets even,
no
if you
question.
need help. What are you gonna do? Times change.
Yeah. I mean, even employers that are looking to pay persons to come to work are struggling to bring people in. So it's a tremendous challenge, and it continues to be a challenge for us to be able to, to service the residents and business owners of our community. So, it's a challenge. But yeah, as the chief indicated, rather than announcing the stats every month, we agreed to do it quarterly. So that way it's not going to be demoralizing for those that are on board.
Would I be out of line if I wanted to send my thanks to our fire department, our professional fire department? I needed their help last month, and they were there just like that. Took me to the emergency room, and I'm very thankful. They did a good job.
Thank you for those comments, and I'm glad that you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
We'll pass it on, Commissioner.
Yeah, absolutely. Any comments as far as the good of the fire department? Chief?
Nothing.
Okay. Hearing none, public comments?
Already?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
May I speak from here?
Please.
Sally Blaney, 5 Blossom Drive. Good evening to you all. I just wanted to respond to one matter that Commissioner Caldwell brought up about it is called the Special Revenue Fund, and that used to list paramedic billing. And from what I recall, and having studied those reports very closely for many years, for paramedic billing, it was broken down into year-to-date revenue, month revenue, and then year-to-date month expense. And the year-to-date expense was always the salary of the deputy chief, because when that position was requested by the chief at the January of 2016 Board of Selectmen budget workshop, although that person would have other roles as far as training and whatnot, but the financial justification for creating that new position was that he would be doing this paramedic billing, and that would generate enough revenue to cover, more than cover, the cost of his salary. And so in those early years, the expense was always listed as his salary.
Right, but when I saw the amount that was listed there, and I called Ed, he told me that number was not accurate, and that's one of the reasons he took it off the billing. Because the amount that was listed there, which was what people were saying were creating a deficit, was an inaccurate calculation of his salary and benefits. That was my question. I said, what constitutes this number? And he admitted that was not an accurate number. So that's why he took it off. He could have gone back and recalculated it, I guess, and that would have given you an accurate reflection. But basically, that number that has been that was on those reports was not accurate about what the salary and benefits were. It was significantly higher than what the cost was. So that's why he took it off. That's what he told me. So if that's not accurate, someone in the finance department can tell us that. But that was what Ed told me when I inquired about what was behind that number. So I think you have to know what's behind your numbers when you're.
So you're saying that the salary and benefits was actually more than what was on?
No, opposite. That it was the number that he had on that as an expense was significantly higher than what would have been the calculation of the salary and benefits.
Okay.
And I'd have to go back to look.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember when I looked at it, it seemed to me to be a very high number. And so when I asked him about it, that's when he admitted, I don't know what's in that line. I don't know where that number came from, but it was much higher than what the salary and benefits were. So,
Right. Well, I remember that just the salary, not the benefits for that position, started at $89,000, and it's well over $100,000 now, not including benefits. And the tracking of the paramedic revenue was always.
Yeah, that
the
piece.
first year was $19,000. The second year was $26,000. It was always well under $50,000. So the revenue never came anywhere near the salary, no matter even if you included benefits or not.
Right.
So it never performed. That was the point. It never performed to the level that we were led to believe it would perform at. When and if you look at the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting from January of 2016, it states in there that the Board of Selectmen was unanimous, not just me, but unanimous in stating that they were supporting the hire only because it would be covered by the paramedic billing revenue, which it never did.
Right.
No matter what number you use, it never came close.
Well, my only point around that was I want to make sure that we're having an accurate discussion.
Sure.
I think we've sort of talked about this issue multiple times and about why that occurred, and I think the chief has explained that over and over again.
Right.
So to me, I just think that if we're going to be talking about what the expense is and the cost, and if the cost of the paramedic billing is significantly high, we have to make sure the number that we're being given is an accurate number. And what Ed told me was that was not an accurate number, and that's why he took it off
Right.
the that particular document. And I think, it's, years later, and that role has blossomed into more than just paramedic billing. So
Right.
I don't think you can, unless you're gonna take the period of time that he's doing paramedic billing and take that percentage to calculate whether it's making the money that it should, then, that's a different issue. But
Right.
the only reason I bring it up is because the reason Ed took it off of that list is he clearly said the expense number was not accurate. And so I just think when we're talking about that, we have to remember that.
And when you look at what the report was just this evening, we've got more than $50,000 of EMS billing this year. So it's well on its way to underwriting the cost of that particular
Is that
expenditure.
from paramedic billing, or is that associated with now that we have the PSA? What
The
is?
PSA
Has nothing to do with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is.
In terms of the revenue, has nothing to do
So
with it.
revenue, well, we don't get the reports of, I don't have it, wait, I might have it with me. No, I just have the expenditure report. So I haven't seen it.
Mhm.
But, that's what we were told was that expense way back when it first appeared on, our special revenue, report, was that it was associated with the cost of the position. That's all I remember.
Right, and
That's why I'm bringing it up.
yeah, I mean, the only reason is, again, when I saw the number and people were talking about that particular line item, saying that it was losing money, that's why I asked Ed what it was behind the number, and he clearly said to me, that's the reason it got removed. He said that number is not accurate. I mean, I guess the other piece to me that, were we collecting money for paramedic billing previously?
We were. It was a fraction at a time because we did not have an EMS billing officer in place to account for everything, to quality control everything, and to make sure that we weren't going to get in trouble through Medicare and Medicaid for the billing. So that was part of the reason. And as we've explained multiple times, shortly after he accepted that position and we allowed him to start really digging into the EMS provided not only by the North Haven Fire Department, but within the town of North Haven, we realized how bad the EMS system was. And we pursued other options, and we pursued the PSA, and that ensued into a 2.5-year legal battle.
Right.
We've been over this, as you said, a number of times, so. That's why the money never materialized.
Right.
Right, well, that wasn't really, I have 3 items for public comment. I was just trying to actually be helpful
Yeah.
in saying what my recollection was of that line, because I was there when it first appeared. And
Right.
that's how it was explained, so I was just offering the accuracy of it. I can't comment on, but that's what we were told, was coming in. But anyway,
Yeah.
my first question I wanted to ask is about the 5th lieutenant that's on in the fire department. Because is that 5th? If I remember your comments on this at the workshop, this individual was returned from military duty. Is that my recollection correct?
You're correct.
Well, first and foremost, I'm sure we all thank him for his service to our country, and welcome him back. But is he currently working?
Yes, he's taken the place of a firefighter right now.
Oh, he has? Okay, because that's what was confusing to me when I saw the March 15th Board of Finance proposed budget. This is their initial proposed budget in preparation for the April 5th public hearing, which I encourage people to attend. It's at 7 o'clock, April 5th at the high school. When I was looking at the employment table for the fire department, it shows lieutenant at 5, which, you know, in the current fiscal year, the employment table has it at 4. And it doesn't show it going from 4 to 5, it just has it from 5. And for firefighter, grade A, it has it going from 31 to 33. But our current budget book has us at 32 firefighters, 4 lieutenants, 4 captains. And so that's the budgeted 40 firefighters.
In total.
10 per shift, yes. So really, you're saying that the lieutenant is taking the place of a firefighter right now, but he has the rank of a lieutenant
He does.
and is of course being paid at the lieutenant rate, which is, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 higher on average
That's correct.
than the firefighter rate. Is my recollection correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so we lost, so we have only 31 firefighters now, and 5 lieutenants and 4 captains, is that what we have now?
That's correct.
Okay. So 31, 5, and 4. So hiring 2 more in the upcoming fiscal year, which is what you're proposing, and what this book contains, would have it at 33 firefighters, and then 5 lieutenants and 4 captains, for a total of 42.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make that clear. So that means that if one firefighter left, let's just go back a little bit. In recent years, we had a phase-in of 8 new firefighter positions, 2 at a time. So just for the sake of argument, if we can call them 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and 8. So 7 and 8 were hired,
That's correct.
okay, but 1 left. One firefighter left.
We've had a couple of firefighters. We have a total of 40 right now.
Okay, with 7 and 8 hired.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And the last time we talked, you were hopeful that they would be attending starting in February with the academy. Are they doing that?
One did not need to attend.
Who didn't need to attend?
I don't think I need to discuss who. The
Oh,
firefighter
okay.
didn't need to attend. Yeah.
One of them already had the.
Yep.
Is that the? Okay. Okay. So only one needed to attend, and they are attending. Well,
Correct.
that's good, because last time there was a delay. And firefighters in this 8-man phase-in, firefighters 5 and 6 took their positions on a shift recently, in January, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. So for all of calendar year 2021, we had just 2 shifts at 10 and 2 shifts at 8.
Correct.
Then starting in January, firefighters 5 and 6, if you will, after they completed their training, brought it up to 3 shifts at 10.
Correct. We were late bringing a 3rd shift on because
Yes.
of a number of reasons.
I know, and they were all good reasons. I know they didn't make it till the following September to clash. You explained that to me. I understood that. I'm just trying to get the facts straight about how many we currently have. I just was a little confused about the 5th lieutenant. Having 5, back when it was 4 lieutenants and 4 captains, I always assumed that there was one lieutenant here at the Monowese Firehouse, where we have an engine manned by 3 firefighters, and the lieutenant was here. Is that correct? And then the captain was
You're correct. Yes.
at Broadway. So now that there's 5 lieutenants, one shift will have 2 lieutenants?
That's correct.
Okay. And I assume it would be on that shift where there's two, you would be at headquarters rather
That's
than
correct.
have two here? Okay. I'm just trying to get it all straight. So that helps me understand that. My next question, is about calls. And I believe this was asked of you at the workshop. In January, it was reported on the fire department Facebook page that the number of calls for calendar year 2021 was 4,896, which was 21 calls higher than the 4,875 in 2020 per the town calendar. So 4,896. And then it listed on the Facebook page a breakdown of those calls. 23 building fires, 15 vehicle fires, 99 fires within building, 43 other fires like brush, rail, or dumpster, 346 motor vehicle accidents, 95 hazardous conditions like carbon monoxide or wires down, 304 alarms, and 2,593 emergency medical service calls. So I added them up, and it totaled 3,518. So there's 1,378 calls are missing, which is 28% of that total. What would those calls be? 1,378.
I can certainly find out, but I think the Facebook page referenced certain call types. It wasn't an exclusive list of all call types.
Okay.
I write the Facebook page, so anything that's on there is from me.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
So it's not a conclusive list of every call type. It's an example of call types.
Well, given the list that I read, building fires, vehicle fires, fires within buildings, other fires, motor vehicle, hazardous conditions, alarms, and emergency medical service, can you give me some idea of what other categories? Because we're not talking about it being off by 50 calls.
Yeah, sure.
It's
So
like-
there's-
It's 1,378, so there's gotta be something significant in there that I'm missing.
Sure.
What are,
Off the top of my head, carbon monoxide alarms,
That's already
fire
in there.
alarms, I'm sure aren't accounted for. I can certainly find out and check. Are fire alarms listed on there?
yes, and so is CO.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly find out what they were.
Okay, because I would, so
Are you
I'll-
questioning the number of calls?
No, I just wanna know what they're for, because it's of interest to me what, I'm not questioning the number,
Sure.
I'm questioning what they are.
Okay.
And the number that was reported, now I'm learning by you on the Facebook page,
Yep.
was, there's 1,378, and I'm, it's trying to think of what other calls they could be. That's all.
Okay.
I could either come back next month, or you
Sure.
could email it to me.
No, you can come back next month.
I'll come back next month and ask you, what the additional, 1,378 calls could be, because that seems to be a pretty exhaustive list of calls. And my third question is about, also your presentation at the workshop regarding the hiring of 2 more firefighters. You said that you wanted 2 more in the upcoming fiscal year, which is the 22-23 year, and then 2 more the year after. Putting, so that, we have 4 shifts, everybody listening at home has to understand that. So currently 10 people per shift, so if we hire 4, that would enable you to have 11 per shift. So my first question is, you're talking about the impact that this could have on saving money in the contractual replacement staffing, basically because as I understand your explanation, if we have, currently we have 10 per shift, and if anyone is out, they have to be replaced, maintaining that 10 per shift level, of course, at time and a half. And for those listening at home, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the 10 people are currently assigned 2 on the medical rescue, 2 on the ladder, 3 on an engine at headquarters, and 3 on an engine here on Reeves. So
That's
the
correct.
10.
Yep.
So that 10 has to be maintained. So you're saying that if we go to 11 per shift, and 1 firefighter is out, you'll just operate at 10.
Correct.
Okay, but that 11th guy is still getting paid. He's out for vacation or sick time or personal time, holiday. He's still getting paid. If we go to 11, our base pay is always going to be 11, right? Okay. So my first question is, in this paragraph under personnel full-time, you're requesting 2 career firefighters. You have, in describing contractual replacement savings, you say, and I'll quote, in other words, having the ability to assign 11 to 12 individuals to each shift while maintaining a 10-person minimum will greatly reduce the line. What caused me some alarm is 11 to 12. You said your plans are only to hire 2 in the upcoming fiscal year and then 2 more for a total of 11. But is your plan ultimately to have 12?
At this point, for this purpose, no.
Okay, at this point for this purpose, the purpose meaning saving on contractual replacement.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you did say that, I think you were asked at the workshop that if all 11 show up, meaning no one on that particular shift is taking a vacation time or sick or personal time, all 11 are there, you said you'll find a place for him somewhere. Will you be able to open up another apparatus with 11 men?
Sure. So, have you taken a position on this already during the latest Board of Finance meeting?
I am questioning the savings, yes. I haven't taken a formal position. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
I'm trying to educate myself on how exactly it's gonna work. The 11 to 12 made me think that the ultimate goal is to have 12. And then I haven't gotten to my other questions yet.
Sure.
But yes, I have questioned the savings but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm still trying to understand operationally, if you go to 11, meaning instead of 10, you have 11 and 11 show up, will you be able to open up another apparatus?
The answer is no.
Okay, so where will that person go? Will they go to one of the engines? Because years ago when we had just 8-man shifts, the engine had 4 people. So I assume 4 people can fit on an engine, for lack of a better word. Would the 11th go on one of the 2 engines?
I'm not going to commit to that answer, and I
Okay.
know that it's already been exploited as to my answer in the past, which was we'll figure it out,
Okay.
and we will figure it out. And the reason why is because a fire commission will make that decision, and because no matter what we do, we still don't meet the standard right now for 4 firefighters on an engine or 4 firefighters in a truck. So when I say it doesn't matter and we'll figure it out, it's because no matter where I put them, the engine or the truck, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the numbers that the Board of Finance should be making their decisions on.
Okay.
Do we know where every police officer is positioned in town? Do you know how many police officers are on patrol, or what districts they're in, or how many per car?
Well, it depends on the shift and
Right,
newer
yeah.
police officers can't
So we've
fire
never,
alone for 6 months. And
we,
there's a lot more factors
the
there.
sanitation work that's being asked for right now, or the recycling work, we don't know where they're going to be assigned or what they're going to do, but we need to know exactly where the firefighter is going to be assigned in order to support the decision. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
The fire department will figure it out.
Well, the sanitation is going to be a collector, so we know where he'll be on the back of the truck.
We know that the person will be working on a shift here at the fire department.
Okay. So my final question is to understand a little bit more about you had said that some sort of modeling had been done to determine the savings. An analysis, you say an analysis was performed to evaluate the potential cost savings. And you said, and I quote, the analysis concluded there would be a $90,000 cost savings for each shift that had one additional individual assigned to it. So do you have that analysis? It wasn't included in, sometimes the Board of Finance gets additional information that's sent to me as a member of the Board of Selectmen. So do you have that analysis that you could provide to me?
That analysis, a snapshot of those final numbers were provided during the budget workshop. I remember going to the screen that showed how much it would be per shift.
Okay. And that was based on the number of times one person's out, 2 people are out, 3 people are out, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that was based on.
I'm trying to remember yeah.
Yep, that was based on payroll records and reflecting back over, I believe, a 3-year average of if we had one additional firefighter per shift, would there have been a savings on that particular shift? And so that was forecasted out, and that's how those savings were projected. But
Okay.
I believe you've already discredited it at the last finance meeting.
No, what I said, it's not really discredited. What I said was, at this time, and that's what I stress, it's difficult to evaluate this because we really haven't seen or realized, I should say, we haven't really realized the full impact, both financially and operationally, of the initial 8-man phase-in. You've just said, in that 8-man phase-in, firefighters 5 and 6 just started a couple of months ago, and we won't be at a 10-man shift for the 4th and final one until later this year. So any data that we have from 2021, that's why I asked you before, is it true we've only had 2 shifts at 8 men and 2 shifts at 10 for all of 2021? And you said yes, and I know that that's correct. I said at the Board of Finance, you say that sometimes you're misquoted, maybe you're misquoting me. I said very clearly, at this time, I can't, maybe at another time I could look at adding more firefighters, but at this time, when we still have not realized the financial and operational impact of the hire of the first 8 and the contractual replacement obligations there, which, as you know, have been skyrocketing. We cracked $1 million last year on that line, and yes, some of it was because of COVID, but according to Mr. Frieda, only 157,000 of it was COVID related. That still puts the contractual line over $1 million last year, and it's currently through February 28th at 722,500, on course again to crack the 1 million mark.
So-
And again, we have not realized the full impact of the first 8. So that has been consistently my issue with hiring more before we even know we don't even have a baseline of data at 40 to then measure 44. That's my issue.
Sally, can
Yeah.
I just ask a question? Because
Sure.
to me, the data isn't necessarily about once we get to 4 men. We have the data of the fact that the contractual replacement line item is so high. And that's what the idea of staffing up addresses. So, and it's not just for the fire department, this is common practice in a lot of workplaces where you are dealing with emergency services, where you're dealing with healthcare services like emergency rooms, because you can't necessarily control, people calling out and things like that. And that's actually, I just finished a master's in healthcare management, and that is one of the first things that you learn when you're looking at your budget. If you have, typically we call it overtime, here we're calling it contractual replacement, but when you have an extremely high overtime cost or a cost of replacing people, then one of the first things you're supposed to look at is, do I have enough staff for the job? So to me, that data, in terms of, we know what the contractual replacement line item is high, and this is something, his suggestion is to address that issue. So, I guess I don't know, barring doing nothing and just letting that be the way it is, what other suggestion would you have to address that issue?
Well, I have a master's degree in administration also, and as well as a law degree and a bachelor's degree. And you keep referencing, let's talk about emergency rooms and hospitals. Yes, they have there's different terms for them. They could be called floaters or fillers, where they have extra, let's say nurses. They'll have extra nurses that are available if someone calls out, because you've got to keep that staffing going. But they're only gonna get paid if they work.
Well,
Okay, in this case, we're paying 11 no matter what.
right, but that's the same
But they're-
case in a hospital.
Right.
But
In a
they're gonna be
hospital,
working, though.
if you have a shift, this is exactly the case in a hospital.
Right.
Let's say you have in the emergency room, you staff for, your emergency room cannot run with less than, let's use the numbers that the chief has used, 10 nurses.
Okay.
But you staff for 11 or 12, because you know that you're gonna have people on vacation, taking time off, and in order to replace them, you're gonna have to replace them at time and a half. So when those nurses come in, they have assignments to do. You still have a job function for them. They're not sitting around they're getting paid for work. It's just they're not working, they're not creating a situation where you're at the bare minimum. And actually working at the bare minimum creates a great deal of stress on the healthcare providers and workers, and creates a situation in which, you're more likely to have injuries, you're more likely to have burnout, you're more likely to have other issues related to your workforce. So it's not that an additional, if someone didn't call in, that you have an additional firefighter that gets on an apparatus, they're gonna go to a call and they're gonna be working. Or if they're in between calls, there are things I'm sure that the firefighters are doing throughout their day in order to maintain equipment and things like that. So it's not like they're coming in and sitting waiting for something to do. They're gonna be working. And that's exactly the way it works with nurses, with CNAs, with staff that you're staffing up for, because you know that you're going to have a large number of periods of time in which you're going to have to bring someone in at time and a half. So that's, to me, I think we have data that supports it. It may not, you obviously don't see it the same way, but that the data is not non-existent. The data is just about the contractual replacement line item.
Well, and we should make it clear for those listening at home, the fire department does have an overtime line, and they have a contractual replacement line. Unfortunately, people, when they're talking about contractual replacement, they say overtime, and that's really not correct. And it drives me crazy when Board of Finance members do that, because they are two separate things. The contractual replacement is when someone is out. Let's go with what exists right now, a 10-man shift. When one is out, yes, he's still getting paid, but he has to be replaced at time and a half.
At time and a
So
half.
you're paying 11 and a half, if you will, for that shift. the 10-man regular shift, because remember, even the person who's out is still getting paid.
Right.
So my question to the chief is, let's just play a little hypothetical to help me understand, the savings that you claim will be realized with this, the 90,000, or 360, if you multiply it by 4 shifts, 360,000. If, let's just compare a 10-man shift, which we currently have, to your proposal with an 11-man shift. And let's say there's 3 men out. In the 10-man shift, if 3 men are out on sick or vacation or holiday, then with the 10-man shift, all 3 have to be replaced at time and a half. So that equals, if you will, 4.5, correct? Plus the 10, it's costing the town in that case 14.5 shifts.
Correct.
Okay, I agree with you, that's correct. With 11 men and there's 3 out, they're only going to replace 2. Because if there's 11 men and 3 are out, it goes down to 8, but you're only replacing 2 to keep it at 10, the minimum, right? So that's two guys at 1.5, so that equals 3. Plus the 11 is 14, right?
Still trying to follow how you're doing the math,
Okay,
but
well,
it doesn't.
you agree, I'm doing it exactly the same. You
Yep.
agreed with me with the 10.
Yep.
If 3 are out,
Mhm.
okay, then you have to replace 3 at time and a half.
Yeah.
So that's 1.5, 1.5, 1.5 equals 4.5, plus the 10 base, that's 14.5 shifts it's costing. Now if you go to 11 and 3 are out, you only have to replace 2, correct?
Yep.
So 1.5 and 1.5 is only 3, but you have to add that 3 to 11, because 11 are getting paid. So 11 plus 3 is 14. So no matter how many are out, this is what I was trying to make very clear at the Board of Finance meeting, and I was looking at a lot of confused faces. No matter how many are out, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4, you're only saving that 1/2. You're not saving a half for each guy, because the base with the 11-man shift is higher. It's 11 rather than 10. So with that model, you're saying that we will still realize a $90,000 savings based on your model that you showed, that showed like a typical week with how many days had this many out, how many. So with only saving a half, you still feel confident in that 90,000.
It's not a model. It's
Right.
it's payroll data.
Payroll
It's
data,
payroll
okay.
stats.
Okay.
I feel 100% confident. We went over this
Yeah.
painstakingly to figure this out. This is not a new concept.
Right.
This is practice in the police department right now. This is practice in fire departments all around us. This is not something new that I came up with. In
Well-
fact, it's something that I've been advocating for quite some time, to be able to do just that, to minimize the contractually put in the staffing line so that we're not constantly doing it. At the top of my head right now, I have 2 firefighters that have been out off the top of my head, one for about 5 months and one for about 2 months. So every time they're out, I'm paying time and a half, every single shift.
Right.
If they weren't, if I had an 11-person shift, then, and nobody else was out sick that day or on vacation or anything else, it wouldn't cost us any overtime.
Well,
This
if
is a
you have
very
an
common
11-man
practice.
shift and 2 are out,
He was
you're
just talking about
replacing one.
but he's talking about 1 being out, not 2.
Oh, I
and
thought
that-
you just said he's got 2
Two
out.
different shifts
Two,
though.
no, 2 different people on
I'm sorry.
disability,
Two different
yeah.
Right, okay, well, when there's 1 man out, let's do that scenario for both. With the 10-man shift and 1 is out, it's costing 11.5. The 10 plus 1.5, correct?
It's costing 11.5, yes.
Yes. With an 11-man shift, it's costing just an 11. That's where I agree there's a savings of a half. Because when there's an 11-man shift and 1 is out, you're not replacing anybody. So there's no contractual replacement at all. But you're still paying 11 because the guy that's out is getting paid at his regular rate. That's my point. you're saving just a half. You're not saving 1.5 when one guy's out. You're saving just a half,
You're not, because you're paying
Okay.
somebody time and a half to be there.
right?
I wouldn't have to pay somebody time and a half
Right.
to be there if I had an extra person.
Let's do it again.
Let's
No,
not.
no.
Here's the thing. I
10 man,
provided.
you're paying 11.5. You agreed with that.
Ms. Buemi, I provided data and stats and payroll. I'm not gonna sit here and be kind of slave to your math and your way of thinking. It's not gonna happen.
No.
The data that I provided can either be believed or it can't.
Okay.
That's what it is.
What, based on the data that you did and your calculations and analysis, what is the break-even point?
Well, if I'm saying it's $90,000 and that was conservative per staff, the break-even point would be the salary plus the benefits, which I have not gotten a firm answer back yet. Somebody from the Board of Finance thought it was 1.5 times the salary, which it's not. It's actually closer to like 114, 115, the last I had heard, for the employee plus all benefits. So that's all benefits, that's everything. It's a $90,000 direct
I thought Mr. Bonney
savings.
said, 1 plus a half, not one.
It's not 1 plus a half. We're going back to days when there were pensions and everything else.
Yes.
There's no longer pensions, there's no
So
longer,
he looked at it as 50%.
as a
salary-
benefit package,
The
correct.
salary plus half.
It's not, it's about 114, 115, give or take, it's in the teens.
Okay.
And that's all inclusive, benefits and
Okay.
all for a firefighter.
So what is this 240 here that's on your sheet? It says 2 career firefighters, 240,000. What's that? That's your
Is,
handout.
yep, so that I believe is factoring on the high side
Okay.
of 120
Okay.
times 2, 240.
So, okay. Because that's what I thought. That's the number I have it in, as around 120 for salary and benefits, around 120 for firefighter.
Sounds about right.
So I agree with the 240. So, I don't always disagree with you. I agree with that. So the break-even point would be 240.
If you're gonna look at this strictly from a financial standpoint with no ancillary benefits at all in terms of there being a benefit towards decreasing injuries, towards more firefighters on the fire ground, again, why it doesn't matter where we put the 11th firefighter, because we're gonna have 11 firefighters on scene now. It doesn't matter what apparatus they arrive on. We need to have between 16 and 18 on scene for a single family ranch with no basement. That's a national stat, that's a national consensus standard.
Right.
So what difference does it make what apparatus he or she is assigned to? We're getting 11 at least now, assuming they're all available and assuming none of them were out that day. And then we gotta rely on the balance of that through the volunteers. So there's a big benefit to the town.
One of the areas where I think having 11 would save the town is in the overtime line. Because as you explained to me before, the overtime line is when there is some major fire incident and you have to call in firefighters who are off duty. That's what the overtime line is for. So arguably.
Part of what it's for.
Yes, but arguably, if there's 11 men, let's say you needed you needed 2 extra guys. Well, now you'd only have to have 1 extra. So I could see a benefit in the overtime line. I'm not convinced on the benefit in the contractual obligation line for the reasons that I cited. One, we don't have a full year at 40 to measure from, and 2, it's only saving half of a shift no matter how many are out. So that's why I'm not 100% convinced on your projection of saving $360,000. Plus, keep in mind, as you well know, the more firefighters you have, the more hours there are to contractually replace. Because those new firefighters now have time, and I know that when they first start out, the time off is less, but they do have personal time, sick time, and vacation time. So with each firefighter that you add to the staff, you're adding to you're adding more hours that have to be covered by contractual replacement, isn't that correct?
That
So,
is correct, but by staffing more than a minimum, that
Yes.
has less of an impact on the
Right,
contractual staff.
But,
I think, I
so I
appreciate.
appreciate the information, it's helping me for the April fifth, public hearing. And again, I urge all, North Haveners, and I'm sure you do too, Chief.
Yep.
And Mr. Chairman, to attend the public hearing. That is a great opportunity for people to learn about the proposed budget, to ask questions from the various department heads, and educate themselves so that they may make an informed vote at the referendum. And isn't that what we want? Whether for or against, we want our voters to be informed. So if I may, just please remind, if I take this opportunity to remind the folks to attend the public hearing on April 5th and educate themselves about the budget and speak in for or against as they see fit, which is their right, and I'm sure you both agree to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome, and certainly, I think it's wonderful that you're educating yourself, and I have every confidence in the Board of Finance, who is reviewing all of the town proposed budgets to make the right decisions on behalf of the residents of this town. And the fact that the town has, the administration has proposed a zero tax increase with all of what is being proposed, I think it's a marvelous opportunity for the residents of this town to have the services and continue to be fiscally responsible. So at the same time, maintaining and increasing the services of our fire department, proposed services of our fire department. So I'm hopeful that all of our residents will participate in the budget meeting. And it was what was the date again, Ms. Blaney?
Tuesday, April 5th.
April 5th at 7 p.m. at the high school.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments.
And you brought up the mill rate. The initial proposed budget does have, you're right, has no mill rate increase. However, if you watch the March 15th Board of Finance meeting, Chairman Monaco talks repeatedly about the need for a mill rate increase. So that's an extra reason to attend the meeting and find out what exactly is being proposed. Board of Finance will meet again, and then there'll be a budget town meeting, so a lot more has to happen.
Sure.
And so I appreciate you educating me on my preparations for the Board of Finance. I'm not just a member of the Board of Selectmen, I'm a citizen and a taxpayer as well. So I'm trying to figure it all out.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, you as well. Any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session. There's a second. All in favor? So moved. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 North Haven Fire Commission meeting. I'd like to ask our secretary to read a couple of motions, please.
I make a motion to accept Anthony Rapulano, probationary member of Montague's Company 2, effective immediately.
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
I make a motion to accept Andrew Romiuk as a probationary member of the West Ridge Company 3, pending national background check effective immediately.
You heard a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'd like to announce that the next regularly scheduled Board of Fire Commission meeting will be Tuesday, April 26, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the Montague's Company 2 Community Center, 282 Quinnipiac Avenue. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.